Hey everyone, this is Chris Newman from the spreadsheetguru.com, and this year I'm going to try to put out a lot more YouTube content, and I'm going to kick it off with a new series that will run a few episodes, and this series is going to kind of give you a behind the scenes look at how I go and create an add-in from start to finish. So I had an idea for an add-in a few weeks ago. I am in the very early stages of just designing and trying to figure out what it's going to do and what it's going to look like. And thought it'd be a good time to jump in and kind of document that for you guys. And as I continue work on this project throughout the month, I'll try to document different stages to kind of give you the whole spectrum of what I do from start to finish in order to produce an add-in that will eventually go on my web store. So like I mentioned, this is completely new. So I will be looking to you to provide me feedback in the comment sections. If you have any ideas for the add-in itself, that would be lovely too, because again, I'm doing this in real time. So I'll definitely be paying close attention to your comments and your feedback. So in this first episode, I want to cover how I kind of capture my ideas. A lot of ideas for the stuff I do happen pretty sporadically, so I've kind of have a few different tools that I use to jot down ideas, keep track of ideas. And then I also wanted to show you how I sketch out user interfaces or the visual aspect of what the add-in is going to look like. So I'll kind of show you the stuff I do to mock up what the add-in will do and how it will flow. So the first thing I'm going to cover is actually what my idea is. I had this idea a while ago, and it's something that will solve a lot of issues for me, but I'm hoping it will solve a lot of issues for other people. And it's implementing custom number formats. So I'll open up Excel real quick and just give you an idea of the types of issues I run into on a daily basis at work. So let's just say we have a number, and that's in dollars. So I probably don't want to display this number without commas and a dollar sign and whatnot. And I have preferable formats that I like to use for numbers, percentages, and whatnot. So currently I have a couple buttons where I can store number formats, and they'll kind of just cycle through various formats in various decimal places for me. And I kind of handle and manage that in this little dialog box where I can write the number format code, and it's nice and neat. But the problem is I have a ton of number formats that I use throughout the day that I constantly find myself needing to tweak or go in and rewrite. So I wanted to build a manager that house or store all these different rules because Excel doesn't have one currently. It stores stuff within a workbook. So if you went to your format cells and went to custom, anything you did within the workbook, it would store, but it doesn't share that from workbook to workbook. So the idea with this add-in is we would have a bunch of blank buttons within the add-in, and we could store different custom number rules to those buttons and have those on demand. So I've got a couple more ideas of what it can do, but that's essentially the main purpose of this add-in. So when I have an idea like this, and I think it might be good to design or build something, I usually jot down something in OneNote. So OneNote's a Microsoft product. A lot of people use I think it's Evernote, or before I got into OneNote, I just used the Note app in my iPhone. So anything you can make a list is pretty helpful and just kind of stay organized. So here you can see a very simple list. I kind of just jotted down some things I wanted this add-in to do. So I had some must-haves, maybe some settings I would need to code for, some nice-to-haves. Usually I'll try to come up with a cool name. I don't have a cool name for it right now, so it's just going to be called the number formatter. So that might change throughout this video series, but that's the tentative name. And yeah, I can bring this up on my phone with most apps. I think you can. And throughout the day, if I get an idea or think of a feature to add, I'll just kind of add that to the list. So that's something that I highly recommend you get on your phone or tablet or whatnot, is some sort of note-taking app that you can just write down ideas when you get them, because I'm sure most people are like me and you just get ideas in crazy places and crazy times, and you're not always in front of your computer at your desk. So it's good to have some mobility with your note-taking apps. And the last thing I wanted to cover is how I kind of mock up what the add-in's going to look like. So I will typically do that in Excel. I have done it on pieces of paper before too. So you can definitely do it offline. And I just created a project folder for it. And you can see I just kind of pasted my notes from OneNote into Excel on this tab. And this is kind of how I'll go through and mock up my user forms. If I have ribbon design, I haven't quite got there yet. But if I have a tricky user interface on the ribbon, I might mock up that as well. So I envision this add-in is going to have a lot of user forms, or maybe not a ton, but at least a couple. And I'm thinking the manager can look something like this. And I just use shapes, very basic shapes to mock this up. So literally just drawing rectangles over here in the drop down of the shapes button, and just using text boxes, very simple stuff. And then with any list manager, I want to have the capability of bumping stuff up or down in the list. And then I kind of need the three buttons, the creating a new one, editing, a current rule, or deleting one. And gone a step further and mocked up, if we're editing or making a new rule, what kind of inputs from the user I might need. So I want them to be able to call it a name, and that will show up in the manager. It'll also show up on the ribbon as well. A position in the list that they want it to show. So if you think of just all these different buttons in here, you're probably going to want some sort of order to them. So you might want currencies all together, maybe date rules all together, and so on. So position is going to be a key functionality to have in this. Also want to be able to write the rule itself. My thinking for this is I'll just let them write it, and I want to kind of have maybe a check or an X based on if it's a valid rule or not. I'm not sure if I'm going to make like a check button or try to validate it in real time. I'll have to check the speed on me validating number format rules in real time. But that would be a nice feature to have, I think. Also giving them ability to adjust the number alignment in the cell, which is not a current feature that Excel has, so that would be kind of a step up for the number format itself. And then the ribbon icon. So this is going to be kind of tricky, but I didn't want all the buttons to have the same look. So I'm kind of going through two scenarios. Either I'm going to have a bunch of preloaded ones that you could select from here, or the way I'm leaning more is having a folder that you can navigate to that has a bunch of icons I'll provide with the add-in, and you can select them from there, and then that would theoretically pop up in your ribbon as well. So still kind of in the early stages of thinking through that, but those are kind of the two options I'm at right now. So as I look at this and think of anything that might be tricky or useful to know, the one thing I like to do sometimes is use these frames in a mock-up, and really all I'm doing is making a gray box right here and then filling this text box with white so that it looks like it's kind of breaking up that line right there. So that's kind of a neat little trick. I've done that in a lot of dashboards too. It looks really nice. And then also for the buttons, I pretty much just go here, use a rounded rectangle. I'll use some sort of fill, take off the outline, and then edit the text. And then just align that text real nice. Let's give me a nice button right there. I think I have them bolded as well. So I use that a lot when I'm mocking up things as well. And I think everything else should be pretty self-explanatory in terms of what I'm using at this point. Just lots of squares, rectangles, buttons, just shapes that kind of give me an idea. And we'll kind of go through turning this into actual user forms and some of the tricks I've learned over the years to make those user forms look nice and pretty for us. So I'll cut it off here for this episode. Like I said before, feel free to give your input in the comments section. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this type of content, and I'll continue to try to share some of these behind the scenes events as I go through and create this add-in. And that's all I've got. I'll see you in the next episode.